Hey viewers, my name's Cara. It's the start of a new calendar year, and this is the first video I'm uploading this calendar year, so you know what that means. It's time for the 2024 year in review. Grab something to sip on, something to snack on, because we're going to be here for a little bit. If you've been watching my channel for any number of years, you know that the year in review videos used to look a lot different. I used to have a lot more screenshots of things that I was posting on social media to mark the milestones along the way of the year. I haven't used those types of social media for a while, so what I've been doing in recent years is just going through my planner, making a list of the things that happened that I want to talk about, and I'll pull some photos from my camera roll. So I have some photos to share of some of the things I'll be mentioning for last year. Not everything has a picture associated with it. And then at the end, I like to go over some things by the numbers. You'll find out what that means when we get there. The cats are here, so they are indeed going to be doing their thing. They were laying down and completely quiet before this, but as soon as I hit record, they take that as their cue to be as noisy as possible. So let's jump in. So 2024, my personal theme for the year was deepening devotion to deity. I did not accomplish everything quite that I set out to do for each season, but I really liked the format of it, and I did do a lot more than I feel I would have otherwise. So I like the format, and I think that I will do it again. And what I did was I chose 4 deities that I wanted to deepen my relationship with this past year, and I worked with one of them per season. Of course, I was still working with all of my different spirit connections throughout the entire year, so I didn't only limit it to those in those places at those times. But the idea was that I would focus a little bit more deeply on one in particular each season, do more research about them, write songs and chants and poetry for them, work with them more often in ritual. And I really liked that, and I'm going to keep that in mind as I go through the future, although I haven't chosen a specific theme yet for 2025, but there are some different things that I want to focus on. So I won't be doing that exact same thing this time, but that's what I did in 2024, and I liked that a lot. So that's the overarching theme for my year. January. At the start of the year, I was pulling a daily oracle card. I had started doing that in sometime in late summer of 2023, and I was still doing a daily oracle card every single day with very few exceptions. But at the start of 2024, I was also pulling a Lenormand pair as well as an oracle card because I was trying to start learning Lenormand a little bit more than I had previously. I kept that up for a while. I am not still currently pulling Lenormand every day. I don't remember exactly how long it lasted. I just started to notice that my daily routine, my daily practice when I first wake up and kind of get my day started was starting to get a little bit too long for me, to the point where I was starting not to do it. So I had to pare it back. So I stopped doing the Lenormand pulls, and I'm still just doing one card. Occasionally I'll add a second card from another deck if I'm working with a specific deck, but I've kept up the daily at least one oracle pull. Also at the start of the year, I was casting a circle every single day. I'll say that I kept doing it pretty far beyond my original time frame goal, but I am not still doing it, not every single day. Last January also, I was living in the Southwest. I was at my mom's, and there was one night in January. It had been pouring rain all day. Yes, in the desert. It rains a lot more than people think. Total downpour. And we were sitting around late at night, as we do, and we heard a cat meowing, and it wasn't my cats, and it wasn't any of the cats that we know to be around. The sound was coming from the front door, and we went to the front door, I opened it, and on the other side of the screen was a small calico kitten wearing a flea collar, and she was just sitting there under the awning, out of the rain, politely asking to come in. So we brought her in, we fed her for the night, I took some pictures. We posted all over the place, contacted the Humane Society, the shelter, let everybody know there's a lost cat. No one claimed her. She is now my mother's cat, and she showed up out of a storm one day and she never left. Also, January being the first month of the year, I had my first of 3 community meetings with my local reclaiming community. Each community does things differently, but my home community that I started meets 3 times a year to do big community scheduling stuff to figure out what's our theme for the year gonna be. When are we going to do rituals? When are we going to chat about different things? Are we going to do a book discussion? So we had our first community meeting in January. We also had our first ritual of the year in January, and I co-facilitated that with a friend from another community because we had chosen as our theme for the year working with the concept of the three selves or the three souls, specifically the version of that concept that comes from fairy witchcraft, which is one of the major influences on reclaiming witchcraft. So lots of cultures have concepts of a tripartite soul. We were working with this specific one. So I asked a friend of mine who is also a student of fairy witchcraft and had worked with this concept more in a reclaiming context as I had, to help me facilitate that ritual, because most other people in my community were very new to this concept. They're newer to reclaiming all of this. So that was a really intense, like, information-heavy ritual, introducing the concept, introducing a lot of tools that could be used by people throughout the year to work with that concept of the three souls. I really enjoyed that ritual, but there was a lot of work that went into that one for sure. And I also started using the Tasks app from Google as another way to try to keep track of all my stuff that I do. I use a paper planner and I put a lot of things in my Google Calendar. So I started trying out Tasks, and I don't use it as much as I did when I started in January, but I am still using it and I am still finding it very helpful for certain things, especially things that I do want to schedule reminders for myself. And I guess I've been doing it for a year now. February, I was a Discord moderator for a hybrid witch camp. I'm actually going to be doing that again this year, but we're not talking about 2025 in this video. So I was an online moderator for that last year. I attended an online druidry presentation last February. I had forgotten about this until I looked back in my planner. My friend Laura had let me know that it was being offered online. It was a free kind of introduction to druidry, learn about stuff. And I always like to learn more about other pagan paths for my own interest and curiosity, but also because I have a lot of friends who are druids and because I'm often helping seekers figure out what their path is going to be. So I really wanted to hear how those folks would describe druidry as different from other paths, and sort of like what do they see as being characteristic of what might lead someone to want to look at that type of path specifically over another one. So I definitely took notes from it. We also started my reclaiming group. I'm just going to refer to that group in the rest of this video as like my circle or my local circle. I'm not always in the same place as them. Like I said, I was living in the Southwest, and that group is where I'm originally from. But when I talk about sort of like levels of community, I'm usually differentiating between like local, like my group of people who lived around me where I lived at the time that I got the group together, my regional communities, wider groups. So there might be like people I know from the Midwest, people I know from the Southwest, California folks, Europe folks. And then there's the global community, like the worldwide community of everybody in my tradition all across the world. So that's what I mean when I say local. I mean like the people who lived around where I lived, even though I haven't always lived in the same place as them. But so my circle, that group, we started doing every other week chats talking about the major arcana of tarot. And we started that in February. We decided it at the January community meeting. First one was in February. I facilitated the first one about the Fool. It was very, very fun and very cool to have that touchstone every other week throughout the rest of the year. And again, we're not talking about 2025 in this video, but we might be continuing more of that stuff because we liked it so much. If you have a group of folks that you can discuss with, I highly recommend doing something like that. It was really nice to have that format. Like, we're going through the major arcana. Every other week, we're talking about the next card. Some of us shuffled our decks and pulled a card to see which one we would be facilitating. So that was also kind of a cool way to figure out who was going to take the lead on it. It wasn't like presentations, but it was like facilitating the discussion. So asking the question, what does this card mean to you? How often do you tend to pull this card? Do you? Or do you not get it that much? And just kind of helping the discussion along. Some of us did do a little bit of extra research about them though, and comparing different artwork. We all posted pictures of what that card looks like from each of the decks that we might have, or ones that we've seen online that we just really like, so we could compare the art and the symbolism. So some of the time we were doing a little more research into the history of that card, how it's changed over time. So yeah, super fun. Okay, big thing in February, I went to the Arizona Renaissance Festival for the first time. It happens in the winter because that's the best time to be out and about in the desert. But I got to visit with Kyle, my co-founder of Pagan Perspective. I had met Kyle in person before, but we hadn't seen each other in like over a decade. And it just so happened Kyle was going to be working at the AZ Renfest, and I was out there at the time. We hung out, and we also went to the botanical gardens the next day. But yeah, it was just, always so good to see Kyle. And look at how cute. We got some really great pictures. Batty was there. Very different vibe. The next thing I have written down is that in February, I went to an IKEA for the first time. I had never been before. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoy stuff like that, just going around looking at things, looking at displays and dioramas. I got some vegan gummy hearts because it was February, so it was Valentine's Day. They have a lot of vegan-friendly gummy candies. Yeah, that was the thing that happened in 2024. I wrote it down. Dan Howell of Dan and Phil had done a tour, world tour, solo comedy tour called We're All Doomed. I had a chance to go see it in person, but I didn't go. But then in February, Dan streamed it live. So I did that. I got to watch We're All Doomed live streamed with Dan and Phil doing an intro and Q&A, kind of like pre-show and post-show stuff. And then for Leap Day, I did a tea and tarot video because 2024 was a leap year. Now that I'm back in Eastern time and I'm not in the time zone that I was in last February, it does say on my YouTube channel that that video was posted March 1st, and I knew it was going to say that for most time zones across the planet because I posted it really late in the time zone that I was in at the time. But where I was at the time, it was like 11 p.m. on Leap Day. But I did a Leap Day tea and tarot video where I pulled 4 cards to represent that year and the years that would lead up to the next Leap Day, and I also challenged myself to interpret each one of them in only 4 words. So if you haven't watched that video, I do recommend it. Go back and check that out. March, I participated in another online witch camp situation, and this time I was co-facilitating one of the core classes, Iron Pentacle. I had taken Iron Pentacle already twice in the past years, but this was my first time co-facilitating it. I also did some other optional offerings. I did some tea and tarot with folks. I also revisited a discussion that I had led at the same event a couple of years before about devotion to deity. And the first time I had done it a few years before, I was really at the beginning of my process of wanting to dive more deeply into that type of relationship. So that discussion was more about wanting to get ideas from people, and a lot of the people who showed up at that time were in the same place of they were kind of newer to it and wanted ideas. Whereas this time I was able to talk about it having more experience with it. I did a lot more in the previous year, and then of course that was my theme for 2024. So I wasn't that far into it by March, but I had the previous year that had led to me wanting to choose that as my theme, and then I had already started the work for that year, so I had been doing it already for a few months by that time, so I had a lot more to say about it. During that event, I used up the last few pages in my small notebook that I had been using for rituals and class notes, so I got to start a new one, and I put some stickers on it. This is one that I got for free. Somebody was getting rid of some notebooks, and you know, I'll always take a notebook, so I chose this black and white one. I have added another sticker to it since then. I started working on something that I'm calling the Elements Self-Assessment, which is kind of a tool that my fellow teachers and facilitators and I can use when we are teaching an Elements of Magic class. It's kind of a whole long thing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just like talk about it, and I don't necessarily want to talk about it for a long time in this video, but it's kind of a big thing that I think will be very helpful in the future, and so I did want to put it on my list. That's when I started working on it and discussing it with one of my fellow teachers. Hey, you're on camera, man. I started a little work in progress gallery in my bathroom at my mom's because I have a lot of paintings and other crafts and things that were ongoing, and I kept them in the bathroom because that was the only room that I could shut a door to in order to keep all the animals out of it so that they wouldn't get into things or ruin things. So I had them like sitting on the floor, and then at one point my mom said she didn't really want things sitting on the floor, even though I'm the only one who uses that bathroom. It's also technically the guest bathroom, so sometimes if people would come in, whatever. So I compromised by hanging up my half-done paintings on the wall, and I decided that it was my work-in-progress gallery. So at least then, if people came over and used the bathroom, sure, there's a bunch of half-done paintings, but they're displayed, so it's like purposeful. And also, at the end of March, my cats turned 4. One of them is there, the other is out of frame. In April, I facilitated an Earth Day ritual for the first time. I thought that that would be a cool idea. I've always kind of thought about it because as earth-based and nature-based practitioners, things like Earth Day being not particularly a spiritual holiday normally, we don't think of it that way, but being something about environmentalism, like something that we might care a lot about, I always thought it would be interesting, again, kind of blending the causes that we care a lot about, our values, with our spirituality. I always thought it would be an interesting thing to do, but I had never seen anyone do it. That's not to say that people haven't done it. I'm just saying I hadn't seen anyone do it yet. So I did one. It was very small, but it sort of got people talking about it. It seems like there was some interest in it. And so I think if I planned it even further ahead and let more people know about it, I think it could be really cool in the future. But this was kind of just a couple weeks in advance. I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I gotta do it right now. And I didn't let myself say no and put it off, because that's something that I would normally do. So I'm proud that I went ahead and did it. Also, by April, I was already prepping the Elements of Magic class that I was going to be teaching that summer. So I had a lot of meetings to begin prepping that, because once I was done teaching Iron Pentacle in March, kind of turned toward, okay, the next class is getting planned now, starting in April. I also started reading The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, which was recommended to me by a community member. It's about putting together gatherings of people, getting people together, better ways of doing that. Not only being a better host, being a better guest, but just like thinking differently about how we gather people together. And it's really relevant to all kinds of gatherings, because it's talking about, from corporate training meetings and making them more, beneficial, interesting, memorable, all the way to like dinner parties with your neighbors, birthday parties for your friends. But it also very much spoke to me about when we are planning rituals and other sorts of spiritual community gatherings too, like for any reason that you would be getting people together, it applies to. So I really got a lot out of that book. I read it a little bit at a time. So I started it in April, I finished it in December. I was doing a lot of weekly meetings in April for other projects that I was doing, classes that I'm prepping. I also, speaking of my works in progress, I finished this painting for my partner. I had started it a year before. I wasn't working on it for an entire year. Started it, I set it down, I didn't touch it for a long time, and then I finally came back and finished it. I don't usually show you my paintings and things, so I thought maybe I would share one. The lighting's a little bit weird for the picture, but I like it. In May, I did not write a lot of things down. It was my Patreon Discord anniversary, turns out, so if you support my videos and my other work on Patreon, which you should do, link in the description, you get access to my Discord server, and also like early access to things that I post and extra things that I post, all that. But my Patreon Discord, it turns out, was started in May 4 years ago. Well, it's going to be going on 5 years ago now. But May of 2024 was the 4th anniversary. I started testing options for ways that I could work one-on-one with students online. I'm definitely going to say more about that in the future when I'm actually ready to start doing it, but for a long time now, I've been thinking, not only do I want to get back into teaching classes online, but I want to do more one-on-one work, or like small group work. So I had a friend of mine help me sort of test out some things for that, and I was working on that in May. And then also in May, I was playing Myst VR, virtual reality Myst, M-Y-S-T, with my mom. Favorite game of mine from childhood. Originally played it on the PC. My mom got an Oculus Quest because my brother has one and we really liked a few of the games on it. And now they're doing the Myst series. So we played and finished Myst VR. We started Riven VR, and then I left. I'm not there anymore. So my mom's gonna have to finish Riven VR on her own. But yeah, if you like the Myst series, if you know what I'm talking about, it's very interesting to play in VR. And there are settings to make it a little less like motion sick, but I know for some people that's just never going to be an option. But if it's something that you can do and you find interesting, and you know somebody who has a VR, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be spending money just to play it on VR. But I am going to play it more again on PC in the future. I have a second channel for stuff like that. In June, I was visiting back east, getting ready for camp and teaching and all of that. So I went to the art museum with my friends. We did some crafting, arts and crafts together. I was doing a lot of crafting to bring with me to sell things at camp. I was teaching Elements of Magic, co-facilitating it. That's how Reclaiming works. There's always at least 2 teachers, shared power and responsibility. I also did some optional offerings on scrying. I had Batty with me, and pendulums, because I've been going back to my roots, and one of the first divinatory tools I ever used was a pendulum. I was getting back into them, getting back into making them, so we did some scrying and pendulum work. I attended a solar punk online conference thanks to one of my friends in community who is also really involved in solar punk stuff and is a solar punk author, told us about it. So I attended that online conference. I got to learn a lot more about solar punk as a genre. And by June, I had noted that I was no longer casting a circle every single day, which makes sense because I was traveling a lot during June, and travel always mixes up my routines. I was still casting circles a lot throughout the month because we tend to cast circle for meetings and rituals, and I had a lot of planning meetings and everything throughout that month over weeks. But I was doing it every day for about 8 months. And then just June, yeah, there was so much going on. Even though, like, I bring my deck with me to still do my card of the day pulls, if I'm traveling and I'm going like one place to another, I don't always get my planner and my deck of cards out of my bag if I'm just going to be there for one night, so then I forget to do it in the morning. I really rely on the visual cue of things being out on my altar, on my desk. So it makes sense that my routines changed during that time. And I just decided after that that I wasn't going to do the circle every day anymore, but I went back to my daily card pulls. In July, I had to get cables for my new second monitor. So I have a big second monitor. That's what I'm looking at right now. I got it for free from a friend of a friend. Thank you to them so much. But I had to go out and get cables for it because it didn't come with the power cable. I needed an HDMI, stuff like that. Also, the air conditioning stopped working in my car, and it was extremely hot. We were in a heat wave. I was still in the desert, so I couldn't drive anywhere unless it was at night when it was cooled down, but it was a heat wave, so it was very hot all the time. And just for other general, like, personal and mental health kind of reasons, July was a bad month for me, so I did not write anything else down about July. In August, as you may know, August is my birthday month. I got a lot of divinatory readings done in August. I signed up for an astrology chart reflection with Stars Dance Astrology School, which is run by some folks that I know, some reclaiming folks. Every so often they open up the ability for people to sign up for chart reflections that give their students an opportunity to look at some other people's charts and practice more with interpreting lots of different types of things. So I had a chart reflection. A friend of mine who does Vedic astrology, Yodish astrology, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, readings, did one for me for my birthday, which I really liked it being around my birthday because it felt like I was getting some good insight for like the year that I was about to enter into, even though for me that's like in the middle of the calendar year. It's a new year for me personally as a human. And then I also got a reading with Kellyanne. I've done a few sessions with Kellyanne in the past talking about my business stuff, talking about my own reading stuff, but I was able to sign up for one that would be right around my birthday as well. So it seemed like a good time of year to get it done. And I wasn't planning on having a bunch of them happen all in a row around my birthday. It was just like when I could schedule it. And then the chart reflection, I had actually signed up for months prior, but they just kind of put you in a list and then let you know when it's going to be done. So it just happened to be in my birthday month. But yeah, I feel like if you are choosing to do like an annual reading for yourself, your birthday is a good time to do it. I was doing some more ritual planning in August. Surprise, surprise. I don't remember off the top of my head which ritual that was, but it was another one. And then, of course, my birthday. I've been doing some online birthday parties for the past few years. I do one with my Patreon supporters in the Patreon Discord. Sometimes we play games, sometimes we just chat forever. And I got a couple gifts from my mom during one of those calls, so I opened them in one of my online Zoom parties, and she got me this big, beautiful chunk of peridot, which is my birthstone. It's the August birthstone. And I know a lot of other fun facts about peridot. I could do a whole other thing about it. But I told everybody in the call about it, and I had another August birthday friend in the call who didn't know anything about peridot. I won't go all into it, but did you know peridot and olivine and moldavite are the same mineral? It just depends on the quality and like where it's from. Also in August, this just kind of worked out well timing-wise, I had ordered one of Daniel Howell's We're All Doomed vegan leather jackets. He had mentioned in some video at some point in the year that there were a few merch items left over from his tour that were being pulled in from all of the tour stops around the world, and once they figured out what they had left over, they could be put up for sale again. And I looked, and they had extra small of the jackets still available. I don't own any type of leather jacket or faux leather jacket, so I thought it's definitely a piece that I don't have in my wardrobe. It's vegan leather, it's supporting Dan, so I got that. It's got the tour design on the back. It's very warm, so I did not wear it very often in the desert. I've worn it a couple of times since then, and I like it. But even though it is an extra small, it's very long on me, so I don't wear the belt with it, because that just looks weird. It's like below my hips. That's not how it's supposed to be. I posted a video called Space to Breathe, Reverse Edit, and it's kind of an artsy thing that I had been thinking about doing for a long time and never actually got around to doing. I ended up using a video that I had recorded much earlier in the year, and I decided I didn't want to post that vlog anymore, but I liked the vibe of the visuals of it. Like, I had new earrings in, I looked cute, it was outside on the porch. So for this video, I edited out all of the parts where I was talking and only left in the pauses in between. The stuff that I would normally edit out and that you wouldn't see, that's all you do get in this video. It's a bit weird, but it's something that I had seen another YouTuber that I like do years ago, and I thought that's such a cool, fun thing, and I had always wanted to try it, so I finally got around to doing that, and that was posted in August. I also cut my hair again. I cut my own hair usually once a year, usually in the spring. I like to just kind of trim it up to around my shoulders because my hair grows pretty fast and it gets very long. I hadn't gotten around to it in the spring, so I ended up doing it in August after my birthday, because I also started learning about like how you're actually supposed to take care of curly hair, and you can tell that this is some days away from a shower and using any product because it's not super curly at the moment. But I cut my hair and started actually doing curly hair things with it, not using the stuff that you're not supposed to use that like makes them go flat faster, because that's my thing. There's a lot of people who like didn't know that I have curly hair, because unless you see me like the day or the day after I wash my hair, because I don't wash my hair every day, that's not good for my scalp personally. Unless you see me shortly after that, you don't see curls. You see like when it goes flat and straight, or it's like a little bit wavy, but that's it. But sometimes my hair looks like that. September was the 3rd anniversary of my local circle, my local Reclaiming peeps. So we had been together and doing things for 3 years, and that's based on the anniversary of the first time some of us got together in person to do a ritual, and that same week we had done an online gathering as well. So it's not a specific date, but it's like around the equinox in September. So my car, I had mentioned in July that the air conditioning in my car broke. There was also a bunch of other stuff with my car, with my registration that had to be done because I was out of state. It took a long time to figure those things out. I had to wait for paperwork. I had to get things signed. I had to wait for them to be mailed. There was an online thing I had to do that wasn't working, so I had to call, and I was playing phone tag to try to get it done like in the hours that that office was open in a different time zone. So it took a while, but finally in September, all of my stuff for my car was getting wrapped up, and we finally got the car into my mom's friend's shop for an estimate. So the AC didn't get fixed right away, but we finally got it in for an estimate, figured out like what exactly is wrong with it, what am I looking at here. Going right along with that, money stuff, budgeting stuff, I finally put together a Ko-fi account, and I started fundraising to move, because I knew that I was going to be moving back east. I wanted to move back east by Halloween if possible, but it was like kind of, well, it's going to depend on what we can do here. So started fundraising to move in September, started getting the car figured out. You can support my work on Patreon. You can also support my work on Ko-fi. And unlike Patreon, Ko-fi allows you to do a one-time support. So like you can tip me on Ko-fi. Just a one-time, there you go. I can also post things for sale there. I can do that on Patreon too. You can also set up Ko-fi for recurring support similar to Patreon. So I've done that. I've been meaning to do it for a while. I didn't have time to get it done. But by the time you see this video, I have now added a monthly support option, a recurring support option to my Ko-fi. So if you want to support in that way, but maybe just didn't want to join Patreon, but would rather be on Ko-fi, now that's an additional option. You don't have to do both. I wouldn't do both. I mean, you can if you want to, but there's no particular reason to do both. I can connect them both to that same Discord community, so it's just a space for my supporters in general, rather than just a Patreon Discord. There's also a lot of stuff going on with The Sims 4 right now, and I have a second channel, it's Cara Witch, where I post game-related stuff. It wasn't originally intended to just be games. The intention is for that channel to be kind of for anything that I want to do that seems different enough than what I do here that it warrants being in a different place. But as of right now, that means it's mostly games, which are still witchy and pagan and magical because, hi, have you met me? That is still very much my interest area. But for example, I really love The Sims 4. So in September, I was really excited about a base game update that came out, and it was connected to the release of the paid DLC, but I didn't get that DLC. But the base game update was that they added romantic boundaries and like toggles for different things that would make your Sims jealous or not. So basically, a lot of my friends and I are referring to it affectionately as the polyamory update. There were already ways in the game to make it so that your Sims could have multiple relationships at the same time. But for example, it was really annoying when like your Sims would autonomously flirt with somebody else and then all of a sudden their relationship that you had worked to specifically put together in your storyline would be jeopardized because like they winked at somebody else briefly. And in reality, there's a lot of people who don't care about that. They might care about something more than that, but a little flirt here and there isn't going to disrupt every relationship to the core like it was in the game. So now there's options. Anyway, if this sounds intriguing to you, I did a whole video about it on my second channel. And I'll mention a couple other things from my second channel throughout the rest of this recap because that's when I finally started like having time and inclination to start doing more things over there. So, to wrap up September, I went to see Beetlejuice. I was very much looking forward to that. It was very fun. I liked it. And then also in September, because my mom had a coffee maker and she had espresso available and we had vegan ice cream, I got really into making affogato, which is an Italian coffee-based dessert. It's basically espresso poured over usually gelato or plain milk ice cream. Like a plain milk gelato or just a plain vanilla. I, of course, had non-dairy ice cream, so not exactly what you would get if you, like, went to Italy and got one, I guess. But affogato means drowned, so it refers to you're, like, drowning the ice cream in espresso. It's so good. We enjoyed these so much. I made them multiple times. Just, like, a nice little coffee dessert. I haven't had one since then, and I now really want one. I added a little bit of hazelnut syrup because we like hazelnut coffee. So I took the idea, I made it my own. Now in October is a big month because I knew that I was going to be moving in October, but I also started out October with technology issues. No one is surprised. My laptop battery started swelling. My laptop casing was puffing apart. So I had to take that out. I did not want that to combust. I learned, by the way, from my friend, that they don't explode, they combust. The issue is that they might catch on fire. So got that to a fire-safe situation. And luckily my laptop works without having a battery in it. I can run it just on corded power. But I think that that is resulting in some issues. Like I don't have the full power available that I used to have, and so things aren't running exactly the same. So I'm looking into getting a new battery in there. Definitely need that. But that happened at the beginning of October. Cool. But my car finally got its repairs done in October, which is great because again, I was planning to move that month. So we were really like down to the wire. Am I going to be able to drive this thing across the country? We got all that done, and right before I left, I got myself a ticket to go see Dan and Phil in person for the first time. I did a whole vlog about it, but I went to the Terrible Influence tour. I went to the show in Phoenix. I really liked the venue, and it was a really good way to kind of wrap up my time in the desert, at least that chapter of my time in the desert. I've been to the desert before. I'll be back in the desert again, but you know, that 2-year time span of living there that was only supposed to be a few months and ended up being 2 years. So yeah, I did a whole vlog about that. Go check that out. And then I drove back across the country again for like the 4th time. Yeah, it was my 4th time individual trips. There and back and there and back. Multiple days on the road with my cats, who did a fantastic job. I was traveling with a friend. I'm not gonna do that by myself. Somebody has to be there to I need extra hands with those cats. We didn't really stop and do things along the way again because we had the cats, but we saw some landmarks along the way. And this was my favorite road trip selfie that I took. And then when I was back east, I did my first ritual with my community in person in some number of months. Like I had done ritual with them when I came back every summer to visit, but we had ritual together shortly after I got back. Our Samhain ritual, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to be back in time for that. So I got here to my new space, we settled in, the cats got a new cat tree, and then, you know, it's Halloween, so I was planning a bunch of Halloween stuff that ended up not being able to happen because, again, technology. I wanted to stream on Halloween, wouldn't work. But I did upload the final part of my playthrough of a game called Barrow Hill. I have a whole playlist of it on my second channel. It's a pagan-themed point-and-click adventure game. It takes place at the autumn equinox. There's a stone circle and a barrow mound involved, and a mystery, and having to solve puzzles and put things together to restore the balance of the land. I've played it multiple times throughout my life since I was a teenager. I love it. If you want to watch me play through it, it's on my second channel, and I haven't started it yet, but there's a sequel. The first game came out in 2006, the second one came out in 2016, but I didn't know about the sequel until a few years ago. So I have it, but I haven't started playing through it yet, but I want to play through that and put it on my channel as well. So Barrow Hill I've played a bunch of times, but it'll be my first time playing Barrow Hill 2: The Dark Path. When I get to it, it'll be first impressions. So if you want to know about that kind of stuff when it happens, go subscribe to the second channel. Link in the description. It's Cara Witch. Also over there for Halloween, The Sims 4 came out with a new expansion pack called Life and Death that adds a bunch more like Grim Reaper stuff, funerals, cemeteries. You can be a funeral director. It added a bunch more stuff for ghosts. There's also additional stuff for ghosts in the base game now. So very much my type of thing. And leading up to that, they also did a rewards event, like a login event, where there were quests over 6 weeks that you had to do things for the Grim Reaper to learn how to make ambrosia, which is how in-game you can bring a ghost back to life. That event was called Reaper's Rewards, and I recorded myself playing through all of that, and I am still currently, as of the time that I'm recording this in January of 2025, I'm still editing and posting my videos of that playthrough because it's like a 7 or 8 part series. But as of the time I'm recording this, the first 5 parts are out. They're on my channel, and I'm working on editing part 6. So I might have that part out and posted before this one goes out too. But about half of that playthrough is there, and then I intend to keep playing with those Sims and that storyline and more with the Life and Death pack. They also added tarot cards, like there's a bunch of stuff. So in November, one of the things on my second channel is that I posted a video about all of the tarot art that came with that new Life and Death pack. So even if you're not so much into The Sims, but you're interested in like tarot art interpretations, you might be interested in that video. But also definitely if you are a fan of the Sims franchise, you'll enjoy the references to Sims characters and lore that they put into the cards. But early start of November, the country that I happen to live in had an election. Some stuff is happening. And some of my community members who I now live closer to, again, had a little fire in their backyard for some of us to get together, talk about life, the universe, and everything. I submitted a path proposal for teaching at next year's camp, which is this year's camp now. November is when I had to do that. I had to confirm who my co-facilitators would be, so I had to reach out to people and ask if they wanted to teach that path with me, and then we did a proposal and all of that, and I had to go to community meetings to present it and be officially approved to do it, so I was doing that kind of stuff then. I made a few runs back to my old house, the place that I originally lived. I left a lot of my belongings at the place where I used to live, so I've been making some trips back and forth there to get the rest of my things. I still do not have all of my things here, and some of the things that I have here are still in boxes. They're out of frame, but I am still living with boxes and bags that are not fully unpacked. So I don't have all my things here yet. We're still very much in the process. But I did a little bit of back and forth in November when I could. I wrote a short story in November that I submitted to an anthology. I'm supposed to hear back about it next month, real time. But it's like months in advance type of deal, which I'm not usually good at things like that. But my friend, who's a writer, sent it to me because it's a topic that's interesting to me. But I love to write. I used to write a lot more, and I haven't written anything like that in a while. So it was very fun to do. And it was spiritual, it was devotional, it was about deity. I got to do a lot of ritual and practice around that and getting inspiration for it and putting a lot of myself and my real practice into it. I wrote a chant for it, like, yeah. I also made vegan buckeyes for the first time in November. I've had them before. It's really easy to make them vegan. You just use like a non-dairy butter, like a margarine situation, and make sure that your chocolate that you're using is just like pure cocoa, not milk chocolate. It's basically just peanut butter and a bunch of sugar. but I made them myself for the first time. And I made a lot of them. The recipe said I was gonna get like some amount, like a couple dozen or something like that, and I made like 4 times as much. I don't know. I just made them all a lot smaller than they did, or what? And then you might remember I did some videos on my channel in 2023 about Worldwide Witch Camp, which was the first online reclaiming thing that was all around the world, stuff happening in all time zones 24/7 around the clock, so that people, no matter where they were doing things all at different times. I participated in the first one in 2023, and then I also did that again in 2024. I was a moderator for the online portion of it, took some classes, did a bunch of rituals, did some optional offerings that I facilitated, had a fantastic time. Absolutely love it. Big fan of that event. A lot of work goes into it. It is intense because it is like a weekend intensive camp instead of being a whole week long. It's crammed into like 3 days. It's a lot, but I get a lot out of it and I really enjoyed it. So I did that again. I didn't vlog about it this time because I didn't have a whole lot additional or different to say about it, but I did that. And then in December, we finished our every other week chats about the Major Arcana Tarot cards. As I said, that was going to be throughout the entire year. And I ended up facilitating 4 total of them throughout, because I also facilitated the ones about Strength, which is the card associated with Leo, and the Hanged one, which tends to be one of my favorite cards in a deck. But then I also facilitated the World. So I started it with the Fool, and I also brought it back around with the World at the end so that I could make connections back from the World to the Fool and kind of connecting the 2 ends together. Now also in December, huge thing, I brought Vlogmas back to my channel for the first time in 7 years. I did a video every day for 9 days in a row this year. In the past, I had done it as every other day from the start of December leading up to winter solstice, but I didn't start it at the beginning of December this time. I didn't think about doing it or really feel called to do it until we were already like a week in. So I was like, at this rate, I'm gonna have to do only a very few videos, or I gotta do it every day. So I did it. I made it through. I can't believe I did. I wouldn't do it again. If you are doing it all yourself and doing all of your editing and everything by yourself, and you're trying to do other things at the same time, it's a lot, especially at a time of year that I already don't sleep well. So I very much remembered why, from the beginning, when I first started doing that, I always knew that I wanted to do it every other day to give myself some extra time. I'm glad that I did it this year. I'm glad that I did it differently. I prefer to give myself the extra time and do every other day. I saw Wicked in 3D with some of my circle members. We went together and then we went for lunch. December is also the anniversary of my Gram's passing, so I spent some time reminiscing once again about that, and that has partly to do with why I can't sleep very well around this time of year. But here's a photo of Grams and I crocheting together. I don't know exactly what year this is from, but it's somewhat recent. It was like in the last year or 2 that she was around. And I was thinking about that because in her obituary, whichever one of my relatives did her obituary, they said that one of her favorite things was knitting. And that cracks me up because my grandmother has never knit in her life that I know of. She was a crocheter, and that's what she taught me, and that's also why I don't know how to knit. I could teach myself, but I learned to crochet from my grandma, and I've continued doing that. It's just funny to me, because to some people, they see you doing something with yarn, and they're like, it's knitting. But you and I know, my grandma crocheted. Everything she's ever made for me that I have around, it's all crocheted. Now back to The Sims 4 and my second channel for a second. They did another login rewards limited time event thing for the winter holiday season, or the end of the year holiday season, because it's not winter everywhere in the world in December. But they did this event. It's called Cozy Celebrations. I also recorded myself doing that, and that is a much shorter mini-series on my second channel. It's only 2 videos. And the last thing I wrote down for December is that I bought SciShow merch for the first time. I get the We're Here newsletter from the Vlog Brothers, from John and Hank Green. And I think in there they mentioned some stuff that was in the merch store. And it wasn't this, but I went to the merch store to look at other things. And then I found this that they were selling from SciShow, because they have a subscription rocks box for SciShow that you can get different gems and minerals delivered every month. And I don't get that, but to go along with that, they started selling this magnifying, like, jeweler's loop. I took better photos of it so you can see it here. But I bought one for me and one for my partner because, you know, I have a lot of crystals and gems and fun little things that it's nice to get a better look at with something like this. But I just think, yeah, like, if there's anything that you could use a little tiny nice magnifier for. 2024 was really like the year of me getting merch. Oh, I don't have it like on my list, but I also got the Jenna Julian and Neat Dude collab Fight Club t-shirt, the reissue of that has all the logos on the sleeves. I'll put a picture of that too. It's on my Instagram. That was a limited time purchase thing, pre-order thing. So I got Dan and Phil merch, tour merch. I got Jenna Julian and Neat Dude merch. I've gotten other Neat Dude merch throughout the year too. I have a couple shirts from them now. And now I have SciShow merch. I've been a big fan of the Vlogbrothers forever. I have their books, or some of their books, not all of them, but almost all of them. But yeah, I've been a fan of the Vlogbrothers forever, and so now I have a little SciShow merch. We've lost daylight and we're coming into the end of the video, so let's put on the fun lights. Now it's time for our little recap by the numbers. And this is just like, how many things of these categories did I do? Movies watched. I'm not a big movie watcher, so you might be surprised and feel like this is a really low number. Probably is. In 2024, I watched 23 movies, which is almost 2 a month, which is a lot for me. 8 of them I had seen before, so 15 of them were new to me. 3 of them were new releases, 2 of which I saw in theaters and 1 of which I saw streaming. I'm not counting like Dan's live show, that's not a movie, so I'm talking like film movies. 1 of them was a documentary, but the rest were like put together entertainment movie type things. Beetlejuice, and Wicked were the 2 that I saw in theaters. Books finished. Now this one is fun for me, and it's finished in 2024 because sometimes I take a long time to finish things. So I wrapped up several things at the end of 2024 so that I could start fresh in 2025. So I finished around 24 things, counting very small booklets that had like mythology. So I said I was doing the deepening devotion to deity. Some of what I found were like booklets that are intended for kids and like young audiences, so very short. Also because I read a lot of graphic novels on Hoopla on the app, so like sometimes I'll read one like standalone graphic novel. Other times it's like I'm following a series, and so I'm reading like 10 issues of it here and there as it's released on Hoopla, so it's hard to count those. But like, so counting a bunch of issues together as just like one series, I counted them as like one series. I also separate witchy things versus non-witchy things. And some things were not witches specifically, but like are supernatural or pagan or mythology, paranormal. So total witchy versus non and those other sort of categories, I finished 9 things that I would call witchy, 7 non-witchy, 4 supernatural, magic, occult, 2 that I would call paranormal, because they're about ghosts specifically, or they have ghosts in them, 2 that I called pagan, which were like mythology things, and 1 folklore. The other way that I look at this is fiction versus nonfiction, because I want to make sure that I'm mixing in different things and not just reading a bunch of like nonfiction pagan research type stuff. So I finished 15 things that I would call fiction this year and 7 nonfiction. So that's pretty good. I read a lot more fiction. Most of those were probably graphic novels. And then I read 2 things that I would call mythology, which I don't feel comfortable categorizing as either fiction or nonfiction because they're kind of their own thing. So 2 mythology. Combining those into my grid of like, there's witchy fiction and then there's witchy nonfiction. There's non-witchy fiction and non-witchy nonfiction, right? Tell me you're a nerd without telling me you're a nerd. I've already told you. Witchy fiction specifically, so only the ones that I would call witchy, like things that were about witches. Hello? The cats have decided it's playtime because the fun lights are on, I don't know. 4 that I would call witchy fiction. If I combine witchy with all those other words, then it's 11 things that were all of that and fiction. The supernatural, paranormal, folklore stuff, fiction, there were 7 of those. None of that stuff that I was reading would I call nonfiction. That was all fiction stuff, mostly graphic novels. 2, pagan mythology. 4 things that I would call witchy nonfiction. 4 things that I would call non-witchy fiction. And 3 non-witchy nonfiction. So like, nonfiction stuff about topics that are not at all witchcraft or paganism. The Art of Gathering would be one example of that. Now, in formats, I read 11 graphic novels. They were all as ebooks through the Hoopla app. 8 physical books, 4 ebooks, and 2 audiobooks. I do want to mix in more audiobooks this year. I have a lot of things saved on Hoopla, And I made some notes about subject as well. So other than like the general witchy pagan type subjects, I read 2 things in 2024 that were Italian practice or folklore. And again, I have a lot more of those on my TBR. I read 2 reclaiming specific things, Magic of the Iron Pentacle, for example. But I read 5 things in 2024 that are by reclaiming authors, but are not about reclaiming tradition or reclaiming classes specifically. So like, for example, Iris Anya Moon is a reclaiming witch who's also an author. Not everything that she writes is specifically about reclaiming, but she's also written about reclaiming, that type of thing. So I read 2 things about reclaiming, 5 things by reclaiming authors. And I read 6 things that I would say were like queer, was one of the main subject things. And that might be like a supernatural story that had queer romance in it or whatever. So just 6 things that featured notably queer characters. And I did not count how many things I read that were by queer authors. So that's 6 things that were like about queerness as a topic of life, or that had a lot of queer character representation. Because I don't know how all of the authors that I read things by identify, so I'm sure that if I were looking at the number of queer authors, that number is higher. I just don't necessarily know how everybody identifies, and I didn't specifically go through and try to make note of how many, even the ones that I know. I didn't write this down, but I guess you could say I saw 2 live shows because I watched the stream of Dan's We're All Doomed tour, and then I went to see Terrible Influence tour. And then the other thing that I put on here was rituals that I attended with other people. I don't think this is something that I've attempted to count before in my by the numbers, and I wasn't like tracking it throughout the year, so this is me looking back and doing an estimate based on when I know I was attending events that have this many rituals per day, usually, but it is an estimate. Rituals with other people, I attended 20, which is an average of 1.6 per month, and that is not counting my personal rituals, so it probably is like a good 2 per month if I were to count my personal rituals, which I don't always track, and I didn't have a good way to try to estimate them. But for example, like I know how many camps I attended throughout the year, both in person and online ones, so I know how many days those events were, how many rituals typically occurred during them. I know how many rituals my local circle did together that I attended. And then there were a couple other notable ones, online rituals that I attended throughout the year. So any of those that I remembered, I added to this estimate. So that's how I ended up around 20 rituals that I attended with other people. I do not know how many rituals I did myself. And by ritual, by the way, to be clear, because so many things can be called a ritual, I'm specifically referring to things where I'm getting together with people to do work around a specific intention, and we are doing like a full casting the circle, inviting the elements, inviting the deities, all of these things, like formalized ritual. I'm not counting things like my daily practice, like daily rituals, if that helps you as well. Like the number is definitely way higher if we're looking at any other type of like habitual spiritual practice, but I was counting specifically like formalized ritual, which is also why I'm not estimating like how many planning meetings I was in for planning classes and rituals, where we do cast a circle when we do those planning meetings, but that's not a ritual itself. So I was very specific about what I was counting here. So that's the 2024 year in review. I told you we were going to be here for a while. If you made it all the way through, if you had to stop and watch this in multiple parts, awesome. I've been working on it over the last couple of weeks, putting together my list, going through my photos, going back through all these things, trying to put it all together into a concise way of sharing enough with you that I think it's interesting, but also like I'm not sharing every little thing, obviously, and just kind of, taking it a year at a time. Every time I do these, it's like, what am I going to share this year? How am I going to do it? So it's going to take me a while to edit, and I'm not editing it right away because I have a meeting to get to, and my mug is empty, and it's time for dinner. Thanks for being here, and if this was your first year watching my channel, welcome. Thanks. I'm happy you're here hanging out. I'm in a weird transitional place, and I have been for a few years, like super liminal over here. So if you're sticking around for the journey, thank you. I appreciate you so much. More information about ways to support in the description. But, one of the things about this channel is that I've never really known what's going to end up being here, and especially as I am doing more stuff in my personal practice, expanding into different things and just like focusing on different things, I'm doing a lot more things that feel much more personal that I don't necessarily want to share with the entire general internet. So it's just been a journey of like, you know, I might have used to do a lot more videos about X, Y, Z, and now it's like, that's something that I really just need to hold for myself, or that's something that's really just meant to be shared with my circle, or, you know, so I'm just really exploring all of that as I go, like on a case-by-case basis. So it's hard to tell you what's going to be here and what's not, but that's an overview of a lot of the stuff that I had going on, and if you're interested in what's going on in my second channel, you can head over there as well. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this year in review. I will see you next time. And until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye. Yeah, we're done now. Yeah, we're done recording now, but I gotta go get dinner. Hello? Pretty.